The killing of the 7 charity workers is probably a turning point in this war of attrition in Israel. We've got 2 wars going on at the moment, both wars of attrition, and one, I think, is genuinely self-defense, and the other one has become an act of vicious revenge on innocent civilians. And I think it was predictable. By going it alone, by not employing a global response team, this has become so much worse than it could possibly have been. It was always going to be bad, rescuing hostages and trying to change Hamas from being an organization, a guerrilla organization of terror, to being either a non-existent organization or an organization that responds within the framework of political discourse. It was always going to be difficult, but under Netanyahu's leadership it's become impossible. Netanyahu and his regime have effectively violated both the Geneva Convention and the Vienna Convention. It's the most astonishing act of sabotage on democracy, and thousands of people are gathered outside the Knesset protesting and calling on Netanyahu to resign, and I hope he listens to them. Those are ordinary Israelis. And has he got back the hostages? No, he hasn't. Has he produced greater security for Israel? No, he's made Israel into the pariah state of the Middle East. Netanyahu has managed to sacrifice all the hard work put in by generations of Israelis to win the hearts and minds of Western powers and to begin to forge relationships with Arab partners across the Middle East. Netanyahu, in one very short period of just a few months, has managed to scupper all that hard work. And to add fuel to the fire, he has now decided to go for journalists carte blanche, to remove Al Jazeera from Israel, to accuse Al Jazeera of violence. Is that the same sort of violence that he and his trigger-happy IDF are pursuing? The units of the IDF are bored, frightened, and embarrassed by the directives from the Knesset and from Netanyahu's cronies. Why? Because the war in Gaza is effectively over, and he's keeping them there in order to save his own skin and to rescue his political career. The longer the army is an army of occupation in Gaza, the longer Netanyahu can cling on to some sort of power. And his entire regime needs to go. It needs to be toppled in the ballot box. It needs to resign. It needs to recognize the extraordinary hostility of the Israeli protesters outside Knesset to his regime. His regime is wrong. I cannot think of another instance where a country at war with another party can possibly have found its own people on the streets in such numbers protesting at the government itself, and quite rightly asking what the government has done in its name, in the name of the people. What has it done? I think Netanyahu must go. And it's not about, it's no longer anymore about whether Hamas invaded Israel It's about the failure of Netanyahu to keep Israel safe, both on the 7th of October and now. Netanyahu has endangered his people in the most egregious fashion. And for that he needs to go, and great efforts need to be made to repair the damage that he has done to his country.